So I'm sharing my screen. Confirm if you guys are able to see.
Yes, sir.
Able to see? Okay. So the chapter we are going to start today is Newton's laws of motion or laws of motion. That's it. So if you observe all the chapters, no, it is an extension of what you have learned in your 9th standard. So let's see. Let's see what this chapter is all about and what difference does it create compared to the previous chapters that we have already did. So write down the heading. So it is laws of motion. So before we enter into this, I want you guys to tell me. So the previous chapters were also motion only, right? The 3rd chapter was motion in a straight line. The 4th chapter was about motion in a plane. Plane means 2-dimensional, right? So here you learnt about motion. Here also you have learnt about motion, and here also you are learning about motion. Then the question is, why are we dividing the same topic into different chapters and confusing ourselves? Why are we actually doing this? Why do we need to do it? Can someone tell me? Of course, compared to these 2 chapters, there should be a difference in this chapter, right? But what difference is going to be there, that we need to find out. Can someone make an attempt? What do you think is the difference? Yeah. What are the difference, guys? Anybody? See, unless you are going to speak out, I can do nothing. At least try. Even if it is wrong, it is fine. So what is it all about? So in these two chapters, we mainly concentrated on the fact that the objects were moving, but we never raised an important question. What was it? Like
Cause
what?
for emotion.
It was very good. We never asked about what is making the object move, right? We know one real fact. If you have an object, see, if I have, let's say there is a book on your table, okay, when is this book going to move? Only when you try to lift it or you try to open it or do something, right? If it is going to be idle, it is going to be idle till you are going to do something to it. By you trying to, let's say you want to take it in your hand, what are you trying to do? You are applying a force on it, a pulling force towards yourself, so that you are able to move that book, right? So book is the object and the pulling force is the one which you applied to make the book move. So here the cause is force, right? Whereas here we never raise the cause concept. If somebody told us there is an object which is moving with an acceleration of 2 meters per second square, we just believed it. That's it. Yes, it is 2 meters per second square. We will go with it. But in this chapter, we will be concentrating on the cause of the object. So these are actually a part of a branch called mechanics. In mechanics, you have, when you deal with the motion of an object without cause. So motion without knowing what is a cause, then that particular branch of mechanics is called as
Kinematics.
kinematics. Whereas if you are dealing with the same motion of an object with cause, any idea about what it is?
Dynamics.
Very good. This is called as dynamics. Okay, so in this chapter we will be concentrating on the dynamics of motion of an object. So wherever you see the dynamics of motion of the object, it means we are going to study the motion of the object along with knowing what is the fact behind the cause of the motion of the object. So that's what we are going to concentrate. So this particular branch is called as dynamics, and dynamics is our concern. Is it clear till this step? Right? So
Yes,
it
sir.
is. So we know that, see, what in this world is responsible? Just now I told you. What in this world is responsible for any object to move or for a moving object to stop?
Force.
It is force. Okay. So before we concentrate on the term called force, let's try to understand one important term called as inertia of an object. Have you guys heard of it?
Yes,
I'm not
sir.
asking the meaning. You have heard this term, right? Inertia of an object, right? So what exactly does inertia mean? If you have any idea, you can let me know. So what exactly does inertia mean?
Resistance to motion, sir.
Very good. So resistance to motion in the sense, can you give me an example? Your answer is exactly right. Can you give me an example? If suppose
Sir, if
you
we are
have,
moving in a bus, there is inertia of motion, inertia of rest and all, sir.
okay, before we go to that, let's try to understand inertia of an object itself. What do I mean by inertia of an object? That's what we need to understand. If suppose I have a stone and I have a rock, okay, they are one beside the other. See, when I put a line like this and a zigzag pattern like this, it means it's a fixed surface. You don't think it is a mirror. It is a fixed surface. Okay. So this is a stone and this is a rock. So you know what is force, right? If I ask you what a basic definition of force, what will you tell me? Force is a push or
Pull upon an object.
pull upon an object with the objective of doing what? To cause or oppose the motion of an object. Why I'm using the word oppose is because one such negative forces also exist, like friction, air resistance. All these are negative forces which will tend to stop the object. Am I right? So force, you can define it like this. So if I give you the basic terminology that are used in this chapter, what does force mean? Force is a push or pull. You can make a note of it. Force is a push or pull, which is responsible for what? Which is responsible for an object. Is it only to move? To move or
Oppose.
come to rest. Okay, it can happen. So force is a push or a pull, which is responsible for an object to move or come to rest. If I ask you what is the SI unit of it, what is it going to be? So what is the SI
Newton.
unit of force? It is Newton. So all those things we will see later. Now I'm only going to say it's a push or a pull. Now let's say I have a stone and a rock in my hand. Okay, I'm applying a force F1 here and applying a force F2 here. My objective. So what kind of a force did I apply? Did I apply a pushing force or a pulling force? So what do you mean by pushing force? Pushing force means anything that is away from you. If suppose you are standing here, if the force is away from you, you call it as a pushing force. If the force is towards you, you call it as a pulling force, right? So here, what am I doing? I'm applying a,
Pushing force.
obviously, I'm applying a pushing force. Now my question is, I want both to move, okay? Now, should I apply more force here compared to F2 or the vice versa for the objects to move? So where should I
Vice
apply
versa.
more amount? So I need to apply F2 greater than F1. Why? Because logically speaking, it is, so if I have a small stone, logically it is easy for us to lift it, or you can push it easily, right? Compared to a rock, which is going to have a greater resistance offered to the force that you're applying. Are you guys able to understand till this point? Are you guys able to visualize what I'm trying to say? Right. Now, if I have to speak in terms of F2 and F1, F2 is greater than F1, means if I try to make more amount of effort, if I'm able to apply F2 beyond a threshold means a minimum value, right? Beyond that value, it is going to start moving, but I need to apply more amount of effort. Now my question is, what property of this rock is actually requiring more amount of force from us?
Mass, sir.
What? It is the mass. If I take this as capital M and small m, obviously capital M is very much greater than small m, right? So it is the mass of the rock which is actually making or giving it more property of resisting the external force that we are trying to apply. Am I right? So this mass is the property that is deciding what? The inertia of an object. Okay. So now let's come to what is the meaning of inertia. Can you give me a definition? Inertia is, somebody told me already. It is the resistance offered by whom? An object to what? To an external force. Resistance offered by an object to the external force in order to not move or come to rest. So what do you mean by my last point? So what do you mean by the last point? What am I trying to say? If you have an object which is at rest, for example, this stone and the rock, they are at rest, they are offering the resistance to the external force to move. If suppose they were already moving, which one will require more force for us to stop it? If suppose this is also moving, this is also moving, my objective is to stop them. Which one will require more amount of force to stop? Let's assume they both are moving with the same velocity. So which one will require more amount of force for us to stop them?
The one with capital M, sir.
The rock needs more
Small
amount of.
m, sir.
No, actually rock only will need. The rock only will need, because and you will understand when I explain the mathematical expression for it. So what I'm trying to conclude from here is, if any particular material in this world, it may not be this rock or stone, it can be a small water bottle, it can be your mobile phone, anything. Every material will have the tendency to resist the external force. Okay. So if they are at rest, they will continue to be at rest only unless you try to move it. If they are moving, they will be continuously moving. If they are moving in uniform motion, they will be continuously moving until you try to stop it. Okay. That particular property of the material is what is called as inertia. And what internal property of the material is responsible for inertia? It is the mass. So can I conclude that inertia is directly proportional to mass? Can I tell this? Now the question is, will I be able to measure inertia Answer is no. You cannot measure inertia because there is no mathematical formula for it. Inertia is just a property, and the property depends on whom?
Mass.
The property depends on the mass mass of the object that you have in your hand. That's it. You can only say, if I give you two objects, you can compare their mass and tell me which object is going to have more inertia. As simple as that. If I ask you to calculate them, then my question is wrong. You cannot calculate. Are you guys able to understand? So please make a note of it. If there is any doubt, let me know. If you're done, I'll proceed to the next part. So there are two terms that we have seen. One is force and second is inertia. Right? Now, the next term that we are going to see is linear momentum. So linear momentum is represented with the symbol P. So what does linear momentum mean? You would have learned this definition also in your 9th standard. If suppose you have an object of mass m in your hand, okay, if the object is given a velocity v, then how do you define linear momentum as? Are you guys able to hear me? Rohan, are you there?
Sir?
Atul?
Yes, sir.
Why are you people not speaking at all, man? Siddesh, what's wrong with you? Siddesh, can you tell what is linear momentum?
Sir, linear momentum is equal to mass into velocity, sir.
You know the answer. Why is that you're not opening your mouth? That's the answer I was expecting, nothing else. You guys know it. Why is that you're not speaking? Speak, please. See, I seriously don't have energy. I didn't want to cancel the class. I'm taking it. If you're going to do like this, my energy will go down. Speak. I'm not concerned whether it is right or wrong. We are here to discuss. There is no test going on, please. Linear momentum. What you told is right, Siddesh. Can you repeat it again?
Sir, it wasn't me.
Then who spoke?
Sir, me, sir, Sasmit.
Tell me, Sasmit. P is equal to what? It is
P is
product
equal
of...
product of mass and velocity.
Very good. See, it's as simple as that. See, if you have an object of mass m in your hand, if you give velocity to it, then what is a new parameter that you can define about it? It is linear momentum. Linear momentum means it's as simple as that. There's not a derivation. It is a definition. Please understand that. Okay. So if you have the mass of the object multiplied with the particular velocity it has, that's what is called as linear momentum. Why I'm stressing on the word linear is because in this year, you will learn about another parameter called as angular momentum also. For example, if you recollect your atomic structure, if you have already learned it, in Bohr's atomic theory, Bohr's model of atom, you would have learned this L is equal to NH by 2 pi. Did you guys learn this? This L is called as angular momentum. Okay, so please be careful. If somebody asks you what is momentum, you need to be very particular in asking, are you talking about linear or angular momentum? Please be careful with that. So it is a product of mass and velocity. Now, what is going to be the SI unit of it? So SI unit, you can say, right? Mass is measured in kilogram. Velocity is measured in
Meter per second.
meter per second. So kilogram meter per second is what is going to be the SI unit of whom? The linear momentum. Are you guys able to understand this? Next. The question is it a scalar quantity or a vector quantity? You can guess. Looking at the expression, tell me. It's a vector quantity.
Vector quantity.
Why is it a vector quantity? Because you're
Velocity.
multiplying. It is because of the velocity. When you multiply a scalar with a vector, it becomes a vector quantity. Okay. So it's a vector quantity. And what will be the direction of linear momentum? So direction of linear momentum is in the direction of whom? Who will decide the direction? See, out of mass and velocity, which is a vector quantity?
Velocity.
Velocity.
Velocity, correct? So linear momentum will have the same direction in which the object is having the velocity. And this is always because you can see, if I give you a vector like this, A vector is equal to B vector, I can tell you one thing, that they both have equal magnitude and same direction. If I write A vector is equal to minus B vector, what can I tell about them? They have the same magnitude, but
Opposite.
direction. It is because of the minus sign. But the question here is, mass can never be negative, right?
Yes, sir.
So you multiply. So whatever is the direction of velocity will exactly be the direction of linear momentum. This is very important point to be noted. This is always. Okay, they can ask questions based on this. They will confuse you. Especially in MCQs, there is a lot of probability for you to get confused. So please be clear about this. So clear, I'll proceed to the next part. So what is the CGS unit of it, guys? CGS unit, obviously kilogram has to be replaced with gram. Meter per second has to be replaced with
Centimeter per second.
centimeter per second. So gram centimeter per second is what is going to be the CGS unit. If I ask you a question like this, the relation between SI unit and CGS unit, what will you say? So what is the relation between SI unit and CGS unit? Right.
We have to convert SI unit into CGS.
Yeah, let's try to do it. 1 kilogram meter per second. 1 kilogram is how many grams? You tell me in terms of exponents. 10 power 3 grams into 1 meter is 100 centimeter, 10 power 2. So 10 power 3 into 10 power 2 is 10 power 5 gram centimeter per second. So SI unit is equal to 10 power 5 times gram centimeter per second. So if in a problem, they have given you the variables in terms of SI unit and they are asking you to convert it to CGS unit, what are you supposed to do? Just multiply that quantity with 10 power 5. Suppose they have given you CGS unit and asking you to write an SI unit, you have to multiply with 10 power minus 1. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, just a minute. So please make a note of it. Done? Are you done? Shall I move on to the next
Yes,
one,
sir.
sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now see. Now I'm going to discuss about the different laws that are there. The different laws of motion. So how many laws do you know? You already know this, right? So how many laws do you guys know?
3.
Three
So who
laws.
proposed it? Newton.
Newton.
So Newton's, let's
Three
start
laws.
with Newton's first law. Okay. So what is the Newton's first law actually try to state?
V equal to UT.
See, Newton's first law has something to do
Law of
with the concept
inertia,
of
sir.
very good. It is called as law of inertia. That's what I was about to say. So Newton's first law has something to do with inertia. I've already given you the definition. Sorry, the statement of it. So what did I say inertia is? Inertia is a property, right? Am I right? So inertia is a property exhibited by an object to do what? It is going to resist the motion, or it will, to put it in simple terms, it is going to resist the force that is being applied to stop it or make it move. So if I take the same idea and I need to give a statement to it, how can I give it? How can I state it? Somebody told me it is also called as law of inertia. That's exactly right. So what does this law of inertia state? Every object in this universe, so don't memorize it, okay? Try to visualize what it is. Every object in this universe will do what? Will continue to be at rest or in what?
Or
Motion.
motion.
See, you need to be very careful. It is not motion as such. It's a special type of motion. What is it? In uniform motion. This is a very, very important point. Please make a note. If you write the word motion, the whole context will change, because when I say motion, when you say motion, I can come and argue non-uniform motion doesn't require any force. Okay. Because what will happen what do you mean by uniform motion? Can someone tell me? Uniform motion means
An object covers equal distance in
is
equal
constant.
intervals of time.
Velocity is constant. And what can you say about acceleration?
Acceleration is 0.
Acceleration is 0. These are the very two important points in terms of mathematical way, remember, for you to remember. Okay, I'm repeating it. Every object in this universe will continue to be in the state of rest or in uniform motion till what time? Until and what force is applied on it. So when I
External.
talk
External
about
force.
yes, it is very important, because when I talk about force, for example, you're holding your pen, right? If you look at your pen, the pen is made up of many particles, right? So pen has certain particles. Let's say it is made up of plastic, it is made up of plastic particles. Made up of steel, it has steel particles. So all those particles will have some intermolecular attraction or repulsion existing between them. When I say attraction or repulsion, there is a force existing between them, but that force is what? It is an internal force, right? So if you take any object, every object will have internal force, and the force that we try to apply on it to make it move is what is called as external force. So what I'm trying to stress here is, in this chapter, our main discussion is only about the macroscopic level of it. Means we are going to concentrate only on what is the external force that is being applied. We are never concerned about the internal forces. Okay, until and unless an external force is applied. So that is why it is also called as law of inertia. Now, are you guys able to connect the dots? Now you're able to understand why inertia and Newton's first law almost have the same kind of
Yes,
statements? Yes, right. So please make a note of it. Now, the question is there a mathematical expression for this law? Is there a mathematical expression for this law?
No, sir.
Why? Answer is no. No is right. But why?
Sir, because inertia cannot be measured.
Exactly. Inertia cannot be measured. This law only states that you need to apply force. That's it. To make it move or to stop it. Stop what kind of object? Object which are moving under
0 acceleration.
uniform motion, right? Under constant velocity. So this law doesn't have any mathematical expression associated with it. Now let's look at this Newton's second law. So what does Newton's second law actually state? Right. So Newton's second law is trying to speak about momentum, right? So we saw what is momentum, right? Momentum means what? To put it in, so momentum, when I say it is linear momentum, okay? So when I talk about this linear momentum, it's nothing but the product of mass and velocity, as simple as that. Am I right, guys? Now let's try to visualize first before we give a statement to it. Suppose I have a block of mass m in my hand. Okay, the scenario is in such a way that it is initially at rest. So when it is initially at rest, what is the mathematical data we have in our hand? Can I say its initial velocity is 0? Right, that is the logic. Now for this object to move from the first law of motion, I am clear that I need to apply a parameter called as force. When I apply this, what will happen to this object? It is going to move. The next important question I'm supposed to ask is it possible for an object which is moving to have 0 velocity? So listen to my question carefully. I am saying when I applied this force, the object started moving. Okay, first point. Now I am again asking a question saying that the object which is moving, is it possible for that object to have 0 velocity?
No, sir.
Obviously, no. But it can have 0 acceleration, right? It cannot have 0 velocity. So if the velocity is 0, the object has to be at rest. Whether it is instantaneous or continuous, that is a different story. But if you see the word rest, mathematically velocity is 0. Since the object is moving, let's say in time t, okay, I'm repeating it, in time t, let's say its velocity has become v. Are you guys able to visualize till this point? Right? It's a very simple discussion we are doing. So initially an object was at rest. I have applied a force. I made its velocity v. So obviously v is going to be greater than 0. From this, what can I conclude? Obviously the final velocity is definitely greater than the initial velocity. So am I applying a supportive force or a resistive force?
Support is, sir.
I'm applying a supportive force. I'm trying to support the motion of the object. But in time t, my observation says that the velocity has increased. Now the question, one more question we need to understand is, see, when you apply a force, there are different ways of applying the force. Okay. So based on which the forces are classified as constant force and variable force. Okay, let's understand what it is. So the name itself is telling you. What do you mean by constant force, guys? So what do you mean by constant force? Constant means something which is not varying with respect to time. As simple as that. So when I say it is a constant force, my question is, if I start applying a force of 5 Newton, for this force to be constant, even after time t, what should be the value of my force?
5 Newton.
It should be the same 5 Newton. Means if the magnitude and direction of my force is not changing with respect to time, then I'm going to apply a constant force. I hope it is clear. This point is clear. Because see, why I'm explaining these 2 points is you need to understand. Wherever you see constant, you deal it algebraically. Wherever you see variable, you include calculus. Okay. So till you guys get confidence in calculus, you need to understand when to use what. That is the reason I'm stressing on this point. Okay. I'm repeating it again. So we have applied a constant force. So I have created a scenario in such a way. I am applying a constant force, and the objective of my constant force to keep increasing the velocity of the object because I am applying a supportive force. Am I clear till this point?
Yes, sir.
Right? Shall I proceed? So now let's observe one thing. The object is having what? The object is having mass associated with it. Right? The object is having mass associated with it. And after time t, it has a certain velocity associated with it. So if an object has a mass and velocity associated with it, what physical quantity can I define? What physical quantity can I define wherever you see mass and velocity of an object?
Linear momentum.
Very good. It is linear momentum. So, can I say, now I'll put a question like this. Let's say point A and point B. If I observe the motion of the object at point A, okay, its initial velocity is 0. At point A, if I ask you, what is the initial momentum? What will you tell me? Initial momentum is
0.
mass multiplied with the velocity at that instant. That is m into 0. That is why it is a 0. Am I right? Now,
Yes.
what is going to be the final momentum at point B? It is m into
V.
v. Right. So, by applying force in a particular time, what has actually changed?
Momentum has changed.
Linear momentum has changed. That is why if you observe, the Newton's second law has something to speak about linear momentum. Now, can I frame a definition to it? Now, I'm going to give a statement to it. Observe what he stated is. The force, when I say force, I'm talking about external force. Secondly, it can either be a constant force or a variable force. That is not our concern. Okay. So in this chapter, if you see force, it is only external force. So force applied on an object, right? I have applied a force on an object, is what? Is directly proportional to whom? Is directly proportional to the rate of change of linear momentum, guys. It is not directly proportional to only change in momentum. It's directly proportional to the rate of change of linear momentum. So what do you mean by rate?
It's
With
divided
respect
by
to
time.
With respect to time, right? So if I try to write the same thing in a mathematical expression, F is directly proportional to, I've already told you, wherever you see change, change can either be written as delta or, see for example, let's revisit it, okay? What is velocity? Velocity is rate of change of displacement. So if I write V is equal to delta S by delta T, I can write V is equal to ds by dt also. Right? When will I use this and when will I use this?
that is average and this is instantaneous.
This I use when average or instantaneous. But one point is clear to me. Wherever it is difference, I can either use a delta or d. Okay. So to relate the same concept here, I will use delta if it is a constant force. I will use d if it is a variable force. D always refers to differentiation. So delta, what is the symbol used for linear momentum, guys? I told you it is P. So F is directly proportional to delta P divided by delta T. Why did I write divided by delta T? Because it is the rate. Right? So F is directly proportional to delta P by delta T. So when you remove the proportionality symbol, the constant was observed to be 1. So it is delta P divided by delta T. Can I write it like this? Or I can write force is equal to, what else can I write? I can also write it as dP divided by dt. Is it clear till this step? So the statement is force applied on an object is directly proportional to whom? If you forget the word rate, the whole meaning will change. Because there is another term called as impulse. If you have heard about it, you'll understand. So there is another term called as impulse. There also you will have a similar definition. Only one word is the change. So please be very, very careful. Underline that word rate. Okay. So F is equal to delta P divided by delta T.
First one is average, sir.
Sorry?
The first one is average, sir. Like F is equal to del P by del T.
Okay.
Average, sir. And is it instantaneous here, sir? Right?
See, you cannot say it as like instant. Okay, if you want to say like that, yes, you can call it as average force and this as instantaneous. Is this what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, generally average is used for constant values and instantaneous is used for variable values. So that's what you need to understand. Okay. Because when I know when you see calculus, you might get scared, you guys. But it is not a big deal. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So we have not yet completed this. I've only written the mathematical part. I have not derived the formula yet. If you're clear till this step, I'll proceed to the next one. So F is equal to delta P means, see, change is always final minus initial divided by final minus initial. Can I write it like this? So what is the final momentum of the object that we have in our hand? It is m into v minus, what is the initial momentum of the object that we had in this scenario?
0, sir.
It is 0, right? So see, since you guys have understood, what I will do is I'll change it to some velocity. Means the object already had some velocity. By applying a supportive force, you have increased its velocity. I'm just changing the scenario. Okay, since you understood, risk means it's very much simple. So can I write it as m into u? So if I write it as m into u divided by, what is t final? T final is t minus t initial is 0. So here, what is changing? Only the velocity of the object is changing. The mass is not changing. See, there might be certain scenarios where mass is changing also, but that is not there in your syllabus. You need not worry about it. Okay. So m into, can I write it as v minus u divided by t? By the way, what is this v minus u divided by t according to us?
Acceleration.
Acceleration.
Is the acceleration, m into a. So F is equal to m into a. So this is the mathematical expression for Newton's second law. See, this is the expression you're going to use in many places in physics. Almost everywhere you will use it. Okay. But the important observations that you need to have here are, can I put a statement like this? If acceleration is 0, or I can say like this. Force is applied on an object, but its acceleration is 0. Is it possible? I'm trying to say I'm applying force on an object, but it is not accelerating at all. Is it possible?
No, sir.
Why?
Because force and
Because
acceleration are directly proportional.
Directly proportional mathematically. But what does Newton's second law state? Force should always change momentum. Change momentum means change velocity. Changing velocity means accelerating. Okay. So one important point to be noted here is, wherever you see, not only in physics, everywhere in this world, if you see that an object is accelerating, it is definitely subjected under some force. So if an object has to accelerate, it definitely needs to have a force associated with it. Am I clear on this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is all about Newton's second law. So what is Newton's third law? This is the simplest law. Every action
Every reaction has an equal and opposite.
An opposite reaction.
has an equal and opposite reaction. So what is the meaning of this? Let's again take a book lying on a table. Okay. Now, if I take this object as A and this as B, then what will the book try to do to the table? Will it apply any force? So suppose book has a mass m in its hand. Okay. If suppose the book was in the air like this, if it has no support, what would have happened to this book? If suppose the book was in the air and it has no support, no one is holding it, if you just it's in the air, then what will happen to this book? What
will fall.
observations can? It will fall because it will be subjected to a force mg. What is mg called as? This is what is called as weight of an object. See, it's not a big deal of how you got mg. What is Newton's second law state? F is equal to m into a. When the object is moving under the influence of gravity, what is the acceleration? It is g. That is why I wrote mg. And this mg is technically what is called as weight. So when you keep the book on the table, there is a force mg acting on the object. Right? The same thing will happen here also. But what is the difference between the first scenario and the second scenario?
It first one kept on a surface, stationary surface.
Yes. So in the first one, there are something called as balanced forces. Right. This also name itself is suggesting balanced forces. Whereas in the second case, you have unbalanced force. What is the unbalanced force acting? It is the weight of the object. There is no other force to oppose it. Right. Here, what is happening? The book is trying to exert a force of how much value on the table? It is trying to exert a force of mg on the table. And what will the table try to do? The table will oppose it by offering a reaction force in such a way that mg will be equal to r. So let's try to understand what the statement is. Every action here, which is the action and which is the reaction? So that again depends on you're seeing from whose perspective. Here, how many objects are there? Object A,
Sir, what
two
is
objects are there. Sorry, R is reaction force. Okay, that R is actually called as normal, that we'll see later. As of now, you don't worry about it. As of now, we'll have in the mind as reaction force. R is reaction force. Okay. So there are two objects. If I see from the perspective of book, then whatever force the book is offering on the table, I will call it as action. Then whatever force the opposite object is giving me is called as reaction. Means if I take this as action, then this will be reaction. If I take R as action, then mg will be reaction. Okay. So that's what the statement is trying to say. Every action has an equal, is it having equal and opposite reaction? Who's deciding this opposite? The vectors. Look at the arrow marks. One vector is downward and the other vector is upward. So aren't they opposite forces? Right. So are you guys able to visualize all the three? I mean, are you guys able to visualize this diagram?
Yes, sir.
Clear? No. One important conclusion to be made here. If you observe this thing, I've applied Newton. I'm saying Newton's third law, right? But observe, if I apply Newton's second law to the above scenario. So what does Newton's second law tell me? F external is equal to m into a. That's it, right? So that's all I know. F external is equal to m into a. Convinced with this? F external. So when I talk about external force, when I say F external, I need to write the sum of all the external forces that are acting on the object. So what are all the external forces that are acting in this diagram? So what are all the external forces acting in this diagram, guys? One is mg and the second is r.
R.
So can I write it like this? Mg plus r is equal to mass of the object, and is the object moving or is it at rest? Your book is lying on the table. So it is at
Rest.
Rest. If it is at rest, velocity is 0 and acceleration is also 0.
0.
So can I write the statement like this? There is a mistake in my expression. Can someone correct it?
How mg is?
There is
Sir?
mg is also external, because gravity is an external force.
Okay.
Sir,
Gravity
force
is
is
an
acting on the book now, sir.
Force is acting.
On the book no, sir. Should we take it as equilibrium or rest, sir?
Whatever it is. I'm saying mathematical. It's equilibrium means rest only. Let's discuss about equilibrium later. Okay, there are two types of equilibria: stable, unstable, all those things. We'll discuss later. First, let's try to understand how to write a mathematical expression in this. Now, tell me only one thing, guys. Okay. Is force a scalar quantity or a vector quantity?
Vector.
It's a
Vector.
vector quantity
Yes,
because F is equal to m into a. Same logic as momentum. Acceleration is vector, so force has to be vector. Means I need to give a direction to it. I had been telling you from the beginning one important point. Wherever
The
you're dealing
arrow
with
marks.
vector, yes, you look at the arrow marks and look at the direction of the arrow marks, guys. If I say mg is positive, then my r has to be negative, no? Or if I say r is positive, mg has to be negative. So what I'm trying to say is, because they're in opposite direction. How did you solve the problems when the object was falling down? When you throw an object upwards, you did many problems like this, no? When you throw an object like this, initial velocity is upwards, acceleration is downwards. So wherever you apply g, you will write it as minus gt. You will not write it as plus gt, no? It is because g is a vector quantity. So mg minus r is equal to m into a. How did I get this? Did I apply Newton's second law or third law?
Second.
What did I actually apply here? It is second law, right? So mg minus r is equal to 0. mg is equal to r. But the same expression I'm getting by writing Newton's third law also. Are you guys able to understand? So whether I directly write using Newton's third law, using the concept of action and reaction, or whether I apply Newton's second law, I am still getting the same mathematical expression. So what is it we can conclude? What is the important conclusion that we can make? The important conclusion that can be made from this is all the three laws are the same. All the three laws are the same, except the fact that second and third law have mathematical expressions associated with them, but all the three laws are stating the same statement in different perspectives. That's it. Are you people clear with this? Okay, if somebody asks you, are all the three laws same? Yes, they are. Because what is the main context all the three laws are trying to speak about? What are the main context, guys? It is force. So are you guys clear? Are you guys clear with how I got this mg is equal to r using second law and mg is equal to r using third law? Is it clear or not? Tell me that thing.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is what happens. So when you solve the problem, what I'm trying to say is you can either apply second law or third law. Depending on the scenario of the problem, you will still get the same answer. That is in terms of problem solving. But in terms of physics, reality, all the three laws mean the same. Please make a note of it. Okay. So this is all about the Newton's laws. So I'm going to introduce one more term before we end this session. And that term is called as impulse. Okay. So impulse is represented by the symbol capital G. So what impulse actually means is large amount of force acting for a very short duration. So large amount of force acting for a very small duration. So product of both force and time is what is called as impulse. The best example for impulse is you would have heard this, right? You're giving an impulsive reaction. Have you heard this? So it happens without our knowledge. For example, if suppose,
Sir, catching a cricket ball, sir.
that's what I was about to say. Yes, when you catch a cricket ball, what happens? So when someone is catching, let's say, let's assume that this ball is the fielder's hand. When the ball is coming from a particular height, and when it is coming and falling in his hand, will the fielder keep his hand here only, or will he try to move in the direction of the motion of the ball? Or
Try
will
to
he try
move
to
in
move it
the
opposite?
direction of
Or see, like there are three options. Okay, will he hold it at the same point? Will he keep his hand at the same point, or will he move his hand in the direction opposite to the ball? Means will he go opposite like this and catch the ball, or once he catches the ball, will he pull it backwards?
In the
he
direction.
will pull it
Pull
backwards
it backward.
Why?
So because if he is doing that,
because ball head already has a momentum. So for reducing
Yes.
that amount of force, he will
Momentum.
put.
Exactly. So the ball is already having a momentum, but what is the momentum of his hand? The momentum of his hand is zero. If you keep your hand idle, it is going to be zero. When that much amount of force is going to come and hit your hand, it will definitely hurt you. So to reduce that, you're giving enough time. So to reduce that momentum, you keep dragging the hand in the backward direction. So that reaction, what is happening at that instant is what is called as the impulsive reaction. And according to physics, that force multiplied with that short duration of time is what we call it as impulse. Are you guys able to understand? So mathematically, if I have to give a mathematical definition to it, force multiplied with time. So force into time is what is called as impulse. Okay. So now I'm going to revisit the second law. So what did I write? Force as delta P by delta T. Correct? So if I take this delta T this side, F into delta T will be equal to what?
Delta P.
Delta
What is the difference then? So can I say force multiplied by the time is equal to delta P. So delta P is equal to impulse. Can I say it like this?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
so how do you define impulses? Impulse is change in momentum. Okay, I'm giving you statements like this. Tell me. Change in momentum and rate of change. See, when I say momentum, I'm talking about linear. Rate of change of linear momentum. So what is this? Change in linear momentum is
Impulse.
impulse. But if I add a word rate to it, it becomes
Force.
force. This is where most of them get confused. Okay. So it is one word that changes the whole meaning. If you add rate of change of linear momentum, it is force. If it is just change in linear momentum, we call it as impulse. Okay. So have this point in your mind. With this concept, we will try to solve some problems tomorrow and then we'll go to the rest of the chapter. Okay. So wait a minute, don't leave. I will take attendance and then you can leave. You can leave.
Thank you, sir.